I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody
Kim Taehyung and the song left between heartbeats. In a world woven with lights, cameras, and the roar of stadiums, where every glance is photographed and every smile analyzed, Kim Taehyung has always been the embodiment of artistry, a voice dipped in velvet, a gaze heavy with unspoken stories. Yet, even the man who seems to have sung to the moon itself carried a melody the world was never meant to hear. Not because he couldn't sing it, but because the song belonged to someone who no longer lived in this world. That evening there was no studio perfection. No slow-motion teaser. Only a live stream, 4 minutes and 52 seconds, that Taehyung quietly started on Weverse. No title. No explanation. Just him. And silence. The screen flickered to reveal a dimly lit room. Behind him, a single lamp spilled a circle of warm light on the wooden floor. He was in a loose cardigan, hair falling over his eyes, a guitar resting on his lap. There was no makeup, no staged expression, only the fatigue of a man who had been carrying a memory for too long. "I don't usually say these things," he began softly, his voice almost swallowed by the room. "But tonight, I think I should." And then he paused, staring at the floor as if gathering pieces of himself. What followed was not an announcement. Not a new era. But a confession that felt like a slow, deep breath after years of holding it in. "I loved her," Taehyung said. "For a long time. But love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means letting someone live where they truly belong, even if it's no longer beside you." It didn't sound like a confession to the fans, it sounded like a letter addressed to a ghost. She wasn't famous. She didn't want to be seen. She just understood me. In ways I didn't think were possible. She knew when my smile wasn't real. She knew when my voice was tired. And she stayed. His next words carried the weight of 1,000 unplayed notes. "She's gone. But I still hear her in the spaces between heartbeats. When I write. When I sing. When I stop singing." ARMY cried, not because they knew her, but because they recognized themselves in that kind of love, the kind that leaves you yet never leaves you alone. From that night, Taehyung's songs felt different. Sweet Night was no longer a lullaby, it was a midnight vigil. Winter Bear became a whispered apology. Scenery turned into a photograph that fades no matter how tightly you hold it. "She once told me," Taehyung smiled faintly, "if I ever leave, promise me you'll keep a window open for me in your music." So, I do. Every day. The fandom began to dig. Some whispered about a first love from Taegu. Others imagined she was an old muse he met before BTS. Some said she wasn't one person at all, but a symbol, an embodiment of every beautiful thing that life had stolen away from him. The truth remained his alone. And perhaps that was what made it eternal. Months passed and the moment faded into myth, until his solo concert in Osaka. Without warning, Taehyung introduced an unannounced song, "The Seat by the Window." It never appeared on streaming platforms. No studio version exists. Yet the shaky audience recordings became treasures among fans. In the song, his voice wavered not with pitch but with memory. "I keep a seat by the window for you, where the city lights are warm. If you ever find your way back, you'll know I never moved on." It was less a performance than a wound unfolding. HYBE remained silent. But weeks later, an art installation titled Breath Between Notes opened quietly in Seoul. Inside were personal artifacts from Taehyung, a worn scarf, a weathered notebook, a half-broken Polaroid camera. Visitors could sit in a small room and hear fragments of his unreleased demos, scratches of guitar, muffled laughter, breaths between words. At the final corner of the exhibit, a white chair sat alone under a spotlight. On it, a small plaque read, "Have you ever loved someone so much their absence became a part of your breathing?" People stayed in that room longer than they planned. Some left notes. Some just cried. And for a moment, they weren't looking at a superstar, they were looking at a human being who had loved and lost, just like them. In a rare magazine interview, when asked if the mystery would ever be revealed, Taehyung simply said, "Some people never come back. But they never really go anywhere either. I keep them alive here," he touched his chest, "because the world doesn't need to know their name to understand the song." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "I always leave one seat empty at my shows. Just in case." Now that empty seat has become part of the concert itself. Always in the front row. Always roped off with a single white lily resting on it. Fans know it's not empty. It's occupied by a presence the rest of the world can't see. And when the final encore fades, Taehyung always walks to it. He bends slightly, smiles like someone greeting an old friend, and whispers something no microphone ever catches. Time will pass. Songs will change. But as long as his voice carries that unplayed note, the story will continue to breathe. Because some songs aren't meant to end. And some loves aren't meant to be named. The night the song returned. It was in Paris, months after the White Lily became a quiet constant, that something shifted. The concert had ended in its usual cascade of cheers, confetti, and the warm glow of thousands of light sticks. Yet that night the air felt different, thicker, as if carrying the weight of an unsent letter. The fans were still chanting his name when the stage lights dimmed to a single amber hue. Taehyung stood there, motionless, head bowed, fingers tracing the edge of the microphone stand. Then, without a word, he stepped away from the main stage and walked to the far corner where the empty chair waited, draped in its usual bloom of white lilies. But this time, the lilies were gone. In their place sat a folded piece of paper, sealed with a simple wax stamp. No one breathed. The arena seemed to hold its pulse. Taehyung reached down, picked up the note, and without unfolding it, pressed it to his heart. For a moment, his eyes closed and the noise of the crowd melted into silence. When he opened them again, he didn't return to center stage. He sat down in the empty chair. A spotlight followed, leaving the rest of the arena bathed in shadow. "I wasn't going to do this," he said quietly, the microphone now resting on his lap. "But I think tonight is hers." The first chords were unfamiliar, yet they felt like a memory. His voice carried no ornamentation, just raw, unpolished truth. The streets are the same, but the air is colder. The river runs, but it doesn't carry us anymore. I wait where you told me to wait. And I sing where you told me to sing. It was not the seat by the window. It was something older, something he had never spoken of. The fans didn't know the lyrics, but they knew exactly what it was, the song he had never let the world hear. Somewhere between the second and third verse, his voice broke, not from the strain of performance, but from the kind of pain that arrives unannounced. He didn't try to hide it. He let the silence after the crack sit heavy in the air, a silence that felt like the truest part of the song. When it ended, there was no applause at first, only a stunned stillness. Then, slowly, the arena began to chant her name, though none of them knew it. It wasn't a name from memory, but one born from collective imagination, a single word shared in thousands of hearts at once. Backstage later, staff would say they'd never seen Taehyung linger so long in the wings. He held the guitar close, still clutching the sealed letter. He didn't open it there. He didn't open it on the way back to the hotel. He carried it across oceans. Weeks later, fans noticed something new during Winter Bear. Just before the final line, Taehyung would glance toward the sky and whisper something. No one could catch the words, not even with the best audio filters. Some swore it was "I'm home." Others believed it was "Thank you for finding me." The truth, like the melody, belonged only to him. And so the white lily returned to the chair. But now, on certain nights, a folded paper would rest beneath it, blank to the world, but heavy in the way only words that matter can be. Because some letters aren't meant to be read. Some songs aren't meant to be sung for everyone. And some love stories are written to be lived, not told.
Tell you what to do, man, they don't know